Steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's could say can make that any better.
Yeah, nobody.
No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home. You.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast hosted by some soccer nerds. My name's Meghan and I'm joined today by Donald. How's it going, Donald?
It's going good. We have a nice, fun episode, and I'm looking forward to some of the conversation. Let's just say that.
Let's get excited. And I'm also joined by Andre. How are you doing today, Andre?
I am good. I'm also excited for this. We have some spicy things to discuss.
Yes, well, let's get to it. We're going to do kind of a recap of what's been going on during the break here in the season. And we're going to start by talking about the Grand Prix Drivers Association statement. So, Andre, what happened with this statement? What's going on?
Oh, it is such a loaded question right off the bat. This is basically the players versus the FIA and Mohammed bin Sulayem, who is the head of the FIA, who is just apparently a weird dude. He apparently craves a lot of control, and drivers are like, we're not your children. So that's kind of the vibe of the dynamic and everything. So earlier, not even earlier, like recently in this season, he's all of a sudden decided that drivers shouldn't be swearing and decided to start fining drivers and also having them do community service, which is just kind of came out of nowhere. It was just like, I have mandated this thing from on high. Here's what we are now doing. And the players put out a statement. George Russell, Mercedes driver, is head of the GPDA, Grand Prix Drivers Association, as Meghan said. And they put out a statement recently that is just bar after bar after bar in response to all of this. So I'm just going to read the whole thing because I think they get into all of it, and then we can discuss it. So here's the statement.
Andre, before
yes.
you do, I just want to let the people know that we don't have an ether beat available in this, but we
if
should.
We could make it, we would.
We could make one that wouldn't hit copyright. We would.
Yeah. Just imagine the ether beat behind this, because this is some really important. This is just again bars. All right, here it is. As is the case with every sport, competitors must abide by the referee's decision, whether they like it or not, indeed, whether they agree with it or not. That is how sport works. The drivers, our members, are no different and fully understand that. Our members are professional drivers, racing in Formula One, the pinnacle of international motorsport. They are the gladiators, and every racing weekend they put on a great show for the fans. With regards to swearing, there is a difference between swearing intended to insult others and more casual swearing, such as you might use to describe bad weather, or indeed an inanimate object such as a Formula One car or a driving situation. We urge the FIA president to also consider his own tone and language when talking to our member drivers, or indeed about them, whether in a public forum or otherwise. Further, our members are adults. They do not need to be given instructions via the media about matters as trivial as the wearing of jewelry and underpants. The GPDA has, on countless occasions, expressed its view that driver monetary fines are not appropriate for our sport. For the past 3 years, we've called upon the FIA president to share the details and strategy regarding how the FIA's financial fines are allocated and where the funds are spent. We've also relayed our concerns about the negative image financial fines bring to the sport. We once again request that the FIA president provides financial transparency and direct, open dialogue with us. All stakeholders, FIA, F1, the teams, and the GPDA should jointly determine how and where the money is spent for the benefit of our sport. The GPDA wishes to collaborate in a constructive way with all the stakeholders, including the FIA president, in order to promote our great sport for the benefit of everyone who works in it, pays for it, watches it, and indeed loves it. We are playing our part. Here's the key. Best regards.
Whomst among us hasn't sent an angry office email trying to establish a boundary and then signed best regards? Whomst among us? Universal millennial experience.
It is perfect office passive-aggressive sign-off.
It starts off basically with, we hope you're well so that I can disrespect your entire day. Like, that's what that was.
Hope this email finds you well.
Tag your favorite part. Mine personally is, where's the money? We keep paying these ridiculous fines and nobody knows where they're going. So excuse me, question, show the receipts, please.
You know what? It's funny. Like I think all of these things are bars. If there's one part I kind of disagree with, right, in a way, it's the fact that there are fines, right? And yes, I don't like when guys get fines. I'm sure they don't like when money comes up out their pocket, but there is some way where you're like, okay, fines should happen for certain things, but it's got to be egregious stuff. Like when Lance Stroll beaches his car, that should be a fine, right? But I also think that the fine should be paid by the driver towards the charity of their choice, right? So if I find, Lewis Hamilton, $100,000, Lewis Hamilton can turn around and donate that to his foundation. Everyone wins, right? He's basically going to do what he already was doing anyway. And the benefit is the foundation, and there's a fine, right? And there's a not do it again. Lance Stroll probably doesn't have one. So he has to donate to somebody, not his dad. And I think the idea is to make it where you don't do certain things again. But the thing about it is they focus on the fact they're like, look, man, we're talking about swearing, jewelry, like pulling your pants up. Like, what are we like? That is what they're talking about in this thing. And I think it's hilarious that this has gone to the point where they had to put out an ether statement because the FIA all of a sudden is like pulling a David Stern.
And just some context, like why the jewelry one isn't particularly important, is that it's been alleged that Lewis has a piercing. I guess we know that he has a piercing they've asked them to take out. We do not know where that piercing is. They have argued it is safety reasons that he needs to take it out. He has argued there's zero safety reason. Like if he's on fire, that's not going to be the problem. And so it's just very funny, like the ticky-tacky stuff that they have decided they need to crack down on, while also previously restricting driver speech. They don't mention it in this one, but Lewis has particularly been targeted for what they've deemed like political speech that they could not say, particularly standing up in remembrance of Breonna Taylor. And so it's just real interesting, the ticky-tacky issues that they want to play police on. And so, we've all been in workplaces where we've had specific rules where we're like, this is really stupid. And there's only so many of those rules and so many of those times you can take before you're like, all right, we're going to do one nice question mark statement. And then after that becomes real interesting what happens next.
Yeah, the Lewis thing, like he's been noted for like wearing jewelry and all of that. So I remember there was one time when they wanted him to like take his watch off and he showed up with like 4 or 5 watches like on each arm. Like Lewis will do some hilarious stuff. But basically it's all about them trying to like tone police. It's all like respectability politics, which is interesting because I do recall a congratulatory post from the FIA president about Donald Trump. So we're going to play that game when you're cool and cozy with a person like that. Okay, interesting. I've got plenty of things to say about that I'm not going to say right now. I do want to get to 2 things because I do want to answer Donald's question in terms of like Lance Stroll and how to find him. Like, what do you do? I think you just ask his dad to ground him. That's it. You just ask his dad to take away his toys. He has to sit in his room for about 2 weeks, and that's it. He's grounded. That's how you handle
no screens, no phones.
Exactly, no screen time in a disciplinary sense for him. In terms of my favorite part of the statement, it's simple. Further, comma, our members are adults, comma. That's it. For me, that's a bar. Whenever you got to remind somebody, I'm a grown-ass man, you're not going to tell me what to do, bars.
So the one thing that I really enjoyed was the further, the FIA director better check his tone. Like you ever feel words jump off the page? I felt those. Yeah. That when they said check your goddamn tone, like that, or we will check it for you. Right. I think that's absolutely hilarious. But also you mentioned like. I remember the thing about Lewis Hamilton and his watches, and I remember someone on Twitter, I have no idea who it was like, yo, next time I'd show up with a bunch of watches. And if they say, hey, man, you got to take off your watch, he goes, you're right, but this one isn't mine. And just keep going, like walk through. But, I mean, that's the ticky-tack stuff that we're dealing with here. And, yeah, like you said, they're adults, they're drivers. Like, if you have a whole thing, do it at the beginning of the season. Right? Like have a whole meeting of the minds and be like, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're not going to do. But none of this like, oh, I didn't like the way he did that. So next week we're not going to have it. Or like in the middle of a race weekend. Hey, you can't do that anymore. don't swear, don't do this, pull your pants up, make sure you're wearing your jacket all the way zipped up to the top. Like those little things, you're going to make it where people ain't going to want to drive no more.
And I think the other really scary thing is that what used to be the rules were there for safety reasons. And there was sometimes pushback on it from drivers who didn't always agree with what those safety regulations are. But you run the risk of people not taking the rules seriously if they feel like they're all jokes when there might actually be reasons. Now, to be fair, the GPDA does have meetings. They used to be broadcast. And if you ever want a fun time, you should go back and watch them. They're still on YouTube where you can watch the GPDA hear from the stewards at each race and watch as they all call each other out passive aggressively. It's pretty incredible. But like they still get safety explanations, but you just run the risk of when you're being ticky-tacky of nobody trusting your word anymore and something bad potentially happening when somebody is like, well, I don't have to follow this rule. The other like kind of serious thing I'll note is that Ben Suleiman, there were concerns about him becoming the FIA director simply because of the association he has with his home country. So he is a member of the royal family there. And they are not used to people standing up to them. They are not used to people not following exactly the way that they want to follow. And there was a concern on the part, no driver ever publicly came out, but there had been rumors in the background that there was concerns by drivers of, hey, how's this going to go if we don't agree with something? I've mentioned it on a previous episode, but there actually was a driver strike in the 80s during the South African race. It was kind of funny because all the drivers spent the night together in a room as part of the strike, and it would be the coolest sleepover of all time. I would love to have a camera in there just to watch them and the chaos they get up to and the shit they talk to each other. I'm not suggesting it's ever going to get that far. I don't know that these drivers have the stomach for that these days. They're paid incredibly well. But there have always been this concern of somebody who has an authoritarian background, to put it nicely. And so it'll just be interesting to see. We'll talk about it in a second here. But is that background starting to show now that it's been a year of him in power?
Yeah, Megan, and I do think that does lead nicely into our next topic, because I do think that's the next piece of the story. Like the drivers took a lot. They said a lot of things. Like there was that whole like Max Verstappen, which again, if you got me on the side of Max Verstappen, you've really been a piece of shit. So like it takes a lot. But when he was doing his media availability outside because he didn't want to go inside, where he felt like that was kind of like, that's where like the rules apply. So I'm just going to talk to y'all out here and then that's it. That's going to be my media availability, because he didn't want to harm the journalists by not talking. He could take all the fines in the world if that's what they want to do. But he also seemed to understand that it is important for him and for journalists doing their job to be able to ask him questions and talk to him. So it not only does it kind of put this unnecessary, weird burden on the drivers and the media, and people aren't really even, it's such a weird thing. Nobody really cares. Like none of the media are like, oh my God, he cussed. Like it doesn't really matter. But you created this weird dynamic now where the players or the drivers are trying to find ways to work with like the journalists so that everybody can do their job. And the only reason they're doing that is because you have an entire FIA doing something really silly. So I think the big part of this is what happens next. How does he respond to this statement? And then what do the players do as a result? So he can either squash this or he can escalate it. I think his tendency might be to escalate it, but I would be careful about doing that because drivers don't sound like they're playing around.
In other sports, right, other leagues, there are rules on certain things, right? Dress codes, rules against cursing, but it's laid out in advance. And somebody's upset when there's a rule against cursing and they come in and basically go, yo, you can go ahead, or like criticizing the refs, right? Like you come in and they go, yo, you can fine me if you want to, but I got to get this off my chest and I don't care about paying this fine here. And then people are serious. This is a point where, again, you had the Bloods and Crips, uniting together, be like, yo, we don't care about your community service little thing. Like, I don't know who you think we are, but we're not your children. So, the dynamic between the drivers and the FIA is starting to become sort of similar to other leagues where, again, the drivers, now they have more money, they have a little bit more power, have a little bit more leverage, and it's still the FIA, right? They're still commanding the sport. And so, and some of these teams, right, which we'll further talk about, they are intertwined in this too. Some of the teams probably are more supportive of their drivers doing this than others. So it's all a big big intertwined ball here, and in the off season they just got to unwind everything and start over and kind of relay that groundwork for the relationship.
I believe the scientific term you were looking for is clusterfuck.
Yes, thank you. Love that word.
As an Arsenal fan, I could talk about rules changing mid-season for the rest of the podcast, but nobody would be interested in that. So instead, we're going to transition to what we kind of alluded to, somewhere else that the FIA is kind of flexing their muscle in a way that does not look like it's positive for the sport. So over this break, we found out that Niels Wittich, and I'm so sorry to our German fans if I horrifically pronounced that, I apologize, who is the FIA race director, was suddenly told he no longer had a job or maybe fired. We're going to discuss it in just a second. So for some background, the race director is the individual who's in charge of each race. They're an FIA official. They travel to every race. And for the longest time, it was always just one person. So most famously from 1997 to 2019, Charlie Whiting was the race director. He had some controversial moments, but for the most part, people really liked him. He had a good relationship with the drivers, and it felt like they could come talk to him whenever. He died unexpectedly 3 days before the 2019 season. He had a brain aneurysm. It was quite sad. And that led to his deputy, the infamous Michael Masi, serving for the 2019 through 2021 seasons. Why didn't he serve in the 2022 season? Well, friends, go watch some Drive to Survive and watch all the ways he screwed Lewis Hamilton out of a title.
It's on site for him in many ways. It's on site.
Yeah, can he fight? I want to know the answer.
If he can fight, I just need to get in the ring with him.
The third circle of hell is that you get to fight Michael Masi repeatedly, and once you beat him, you can move to the fourth.
Didn't sound like hell to me. Sounds like a fun time.
That sounds like the other place.
And so when Michael Masi screwed everything up, one of the recommendations they made in the wake of that was, okay, well, maybe it's too big of a job for one person. Maybe Charlie Whiting just was like excellent at this job, and we can't expect one person to do it. So why don't we have two people do it? They'll alternate races, so that way they get a little bit of a break and things will go great, right? Nope, totally not. So they selected Niels Wittich and then another guy named Eduardo Freitas, who was a Portuguese FIA official. He had run some of the other types of racing in the European circuits. And they took over in 2022. All's going well. And then the 2022 Japanese GP happened. And so if y'all don't remember, they had a forklift on the track, which is really dangerous. And Pierre Gasly wasn't aware of it. And he drove by going in the rain, going above 100 miles per hour. And if he had spun out or hydroplaned, that could have been like an incredibly dangerous situation. Famously, the Japanese GP is where the last F1 driver to die during a race passed away. So there's extra, like, we do not, we take safety very seriously here. So as a result.
And that happened in a very similar situation, right?
Yes, yeah. So he hit a crane that was on the track to lift the car, and they had not called a red flag at that point, which is why Jules Bianchi was still on the track going the same speed. In 2022, it's a little different. They had done a virtual safety car, but Pierre was trying to catch up to the back of the pack. Anyway, moral of the story was it was really bad race directing. And so Eduardo got sent to a farm upstate and was no longer with us. So then it is just Niels Wittich. And earlier this week, the FIA announced that he had resigned to spend more time with his family, with 3 races remaining in the season. And the group chat was very confused, seemed like a weird choice. And then plot thickened when we got a message from a journalist who said that I've just talked with Niels, and he said, nope, I was fired. I don't agree with that statement. I did not resign in any way. And since then, we haven't heard anything from the FIA. So Donald André, what are your thoughts about the FIA firing, we understand, the race director with 3 races left to go?
Well, first off, I like the fact that he was like, yo, man, you can't silence me. I don't work for you no more. So the fact they put out the company statement was probably thinking that he was just going to abide by that. He was like, nah, you don't. Apparently, y'all not paying me checks no more, so I can say what I want, and I'm going to tell you the truth. And I think, first of all, the FIA not coming out and saying what is next is interesting, because I wonder, and this is just, maybe the conspiracy theorist portion of the program. I wonder who is in their ear about who it's going to be, because there is a very competitive race that we've been talking about since we started this podcast, that is continuing in Vegas next week. And Vegas, of all places, is a place where a race director is very important, because there are not just city streets. There are thousands of people who don't know what F1 is that will be involved in this race, because they are in the middle of the strip in Vegas. So I'm perplexed as to why they haven't announced who the new race director will be. Makes a lot of sense, considering they kind of tried to throw this resignation thing out there to try and tide us over and go and try and put the spins on Freitas. But yeah, this is just another example of, hey, like, when they say something, and this thing is about trust, right? It's about transparency, it's about trust. And if the drivers can't trust what's coming out of the FIA, if the fans can't trust what's coming out of the FIA, you lose a lot of support very quickly. And you don't want any drivers to feel like you are setting them up for failure, especially those drivers at the top who are going for a driver's championship and for a constructor's championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think this whole thing is just weird. And it just, to me, it more speaks to the FIA just being weird and dysfunctional, just like we were talking about previously with their sudden battle with the drivers and all of that. This feels like it, because why do you put out a statement saying that the dude wants to spend more time with his family, and he's just straight up like, no, actually, I was just fired. Like, that's not why I don't have this job anymore. And I do want to give a shout out to the motorsport journalist. He's a German journalist called Christian Meneth. He is the one who talked to Wittich, and he's the one who reported probably minutes after it was announced that he was gone. He was like, his tweet says, Niels told me he didn't step down from his role as F1 race director. He was just fired and was told so today. So like, that's another weird thing about this whole thing. And you create a lot of uncertainty and you create distrust when you move the way that the FIA moves. The other thing I'll say, there probably is, after that very weird and at times very dangerous Brazil Grand Prix in Interlagos, there probably was reason to have like some pressure on his job. And yeah, there are only 3 Grand Prix left, but you could be like, hey, that was really dangerous, and we got really lucky that something really bad didn't happen. I mean, there were late red flags. There was a whole, the way the weekend went overall, I mean, the rain made things weird anyway, but it doesn't feel like they adjusted well to it. So you could see, like, there is reason, but why be shady about it? Why try to make up a reason why, like, this was his decision? It just creates a lot of mistrust, and I think that this is just something the FIA just naturally does, and that, to me, it signals a very dysfunctional organization. They really got to sort that out.
They could have won points. They could have been shown as prioritizing driver safety if they said, hey, you know what? This wasn't up to snuff. Thanks so much for your service. We're going to move forward with somebody else, right? The part that's wild to me, and maybe does indicate that is what happened, is that, like you mentioned, they haven't announced who else it's going to be. There was no clear transition to someone else. There was no discussion of someone serving, in an interim role at this moment. That may come out, obviously, before the next race. But as of right now, we don't know of anybody. And so it's just kind of an interesting situation, because it does lead you to believe that maybe this was a direct reaction to Brazil, that they didn't have their ducks in a row. But if that's what it is, then just be honest and earn the points from the public and from the drivers that you're taking this seriously. Just seems like a really self-enforced L. Like, you guys could have just not done this, and you did on either side. So,
yeah, it when you think about it, you both are right. Like, what happened in Brazil could have been easily grounds for them to have a discussion about it, and they could have said, hey, we had disagreements with how that went and how that should have gone, and after having it out, we decided to go in different directions and part ways. We made this decision, and we wish them the best, yada yada yada, and they could have done that. And even like the parting of mutual ways portion of things would have been a lot better than just saying, yo, he quit. Like, we're surprised as you are, when it clearly there was a discussion, heated of sorts, and probably words were said, and he was probably like, what are you gonna do, fire me? And they're like, yeah. And so there's probably something like that happened, and they could have just, if they had just presented it as such, I think all the fans would have been like, all right, yeah, he did kind of mess up that Brazil thing, so I get it. Like, whatever, like, move on. But just again, the non-transparency and just it leaves a lack of trust in the minds of everybody.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like I said, that Interlagos was just strange. Like there was so much that happened there that I would certainly understand. And obviously you run afoul of Red Bull as a race director and you might get booted anyway. So the fact that they were upset and Max was caught by that red flag during qualifying, some of that stuff could just be enough, because there were a couple times where Red Bull, who has the biggest persecution complex on the grid, felt like things were happening to them.
I was trying to dance around it.
No, we're being real about it. This is what happens. But I did want to pull this up because I did hear on a couple of podcasts, and I want to do some research while we were talking about this. They have apparently named somebody who's going to step in for the next 3 races at least.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's the current F2 and F3 race director, Rui Marquez, is apparently going to run the Las Vegas Grand Prix in the last 2 in Qatar and Abu Dhabi, I believe, are the next one. So that is apparently what the plan is from here on out.
Nice. I will say this discussion, I was trying to think, like, classic soccer is you get a corner flag graphic and then it's like so-and-so has been informed they are no longer a manager of this club. I guess the version of that for F1 would be like a corner of DRS or like maybe a wheel graphic. I'm just workshopping here. We need like a tire
definitely
graphic, maybe.
A loose tire.
A checkered flag.
Yeah.
Checkered flag. Incredible. While we continue to think on that, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to learn about who the new bombshell in the villa is. So we are back. And as I alluded to, we have a new friend on the grid, and that is Bortoleto, who is one of the current F2 drivers. He's actually in first currently, and he will be joining Sauber Audi next year. As a reminder, he's joining Hulk on the grid. That'll be a fun team, an old veteran, a brand newbie. He will be the only true Brazilian on the grid, but we all know that Lewis is Brazilian in his heart. And some just like interesting facts about him. Like I said, he's currently first in F2, and if that result holds, he would have had to sit out next year. Which is kind of an interesting quirk. We'll talk about in the off season sometime, but the way that racing series works and that you can't re-race once you've won. He's the only driver ever in Formula 1 or Formula 2 to win from last place on the grid. He started dead last in Monza this year and won, which was pretty incredible. And then one last little point of controversy, I guess. He is the first driver from Fernando Alonso's management company to make it to F1. So Fernando 3 years ago started A14 management as kind of let me mentor these children into F1. And so there was some question if he called his old friend from Ferrari at Sauber to say, hey, hire this guy. Bonotto has come out and said, no, this kid is really good. Fernando didn't have to call me. We already knew about him. He was in the McLaren Drivers Academy and has now left McLaren, obviously, to become a Sauber driver. But it's just kind of interesting. And so the newbie, that means Calapinto, did not get the spot. So what do you guys think about somebody we haven't really heard a lot about this season taking that spot?
I'm kind of fascinated by this just because I like all the new drivers on the grid, although I will say one thing that we did see in Interlagos, because we were just talking about that race and how messy it was because of the conditions. You did hear certain Ollie Behrman on the radio say that like he felt dangerous, like he didn't want to die in that car as well. Like you do see that they don't quite have the experience that some of the other drivers have. And so it is a little bit interesting for F1 to have so many rookie drivers on the grid at one time. But I'm also excited about it because I do feel like some drivers, I'm sorry to say, have maybe overstayed their welcome a little bit. And I think there are some very talented young drivers coming up. Like I think Ollie Behrman is awesome, and it's going to be interesting to see if he could be a future Grand Prix winner and also maybe even champion. And I think same thing with Colapinto. Hopefully he gets a seat somewhere. That's still interesting. Bortoleto, very interested to see what he can do. Liam Lawson has come in and basically not been afraid to go at anybody. He was like, what did he say earlier this week or last week, where he was just like, I don't know why McLaren doesn't play the New Zealand national anthem.
Yes.
Like he has such hater energy that I love it. He can't help but hate in everything that he does, and I appreciate it. But Bortoleto seems interesting. I actually went back when I heard about his win from last place. I went back to watch that race because I don't normally watch F2 races, but it was absolutely incredible. And yes, it was aided by a couple well-timed, safety cars, so he was able to get close, but he still performed a ton of overtakes to get up there. And some of it was strategy based. He could be a lot more reckless or take a lot more risk with his strategy, but he did that. And if you watch the race, you do see it was kind of a combination of strategy, a little bit of luck with some of the safety car stuff, but also him just locking in and being able to get himself in great position to maximize some of the breaks he was getting throughout that race. So I'm really excited to see what he can do.
He just has to get a grand total of 1 point to be better than this year. And so I don't know if he's ready for that kind of pressure. But no, I think in all seriousness, I think it's really cool to have a lot of new drivers involved. I think the only catch is for fans is we don't necessarily care about the new kids if they're not going to challenge the big dudes on the block. And what do I mean by that is Max. If it's not, a bunch of guys who are ready to take it to Red Bull and take it to Max and even challenge Lando and Oscar and the new reshuffled Ferrari, then it doesn't matter. We still kind of we'll look at them as kind of afterthoughts that, yeah, it's cool they're on the grid, but they're going to be fighting it out for, 13th and 14th place. So, I mean, Kick Sauber already has that mental block when you think of them. As, hey, those are the guys that they got two drivers, but we ain't, we're not worried about them at any point in the race. They're not getting points. They're not getting, they're not even getting starting from, top positions, in the race. So that's what he has to overcome. I think is going to be great if he can make it all the way to Brazil next year. That dynamic with Lewis and Ferrari now, and then him showing up, there'll be a lot for those fans to cheer for, and just really fans in South America in general with Colapinto, if he can stay on the grid. So I really like the fact that we got guys coming from different places. We got guys who clearly could drive, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Because like you, Andre, I don't know a lot about F2 and F3. That's just not enough time in the day to watch all of those races as well. But to know that he's one of those up-and-coming drivers that people have had their eye on, I'm looking forward to seeing him.
And I'm just going to plug F2 really quick, a quick little F2 minute, if you will. If you would like to watch F2 and you have the Formula One subscription, you actually can watch every F2 race on there as well, and F3 too as well, I believe. F2 is really exciting this season. I personally haven't been watching because I don't have enough time. But the first and second driver are only separated by 4.5 points. Yes, a half. You heard me. Kimi Antonelli, who is seen as kind of the once and future king of Mercedes, is in 6th place. Colapinto's in 7th place. Colapinto's a little interesting because he drove in F1. So then he missed out on those races. So he might have been higher had he driven the full season in F2, like Bortoleto has. So it's just kind of interesting. We're coming up on the time of the year where we're going to have brand new drivers participating in the free practice sessions. They have to do a young driver session very soon. So you'll see a lot of F2 names on there. So that's something you're interested in. They also do a little mock Drive to Survive, although I will say it's maybe not as interesting, but it's still fun if you're I want to see some babies race each other and be grumpy about it, on the F1 TV service as well. So you can always go back and look at baby Oscar or baby George Russell. They were on previous seasons of it.
Is it like the MLS Sueño, little mini documentaries that they used to do with those up and coming Chipotle homegrown players? Are I am this guy. I am 12 years old. I will one day play in Major League Soccer. Then 6 years later, wait, I think I know that guy. But yeah, I think the F2 race, I think I have it on my TV, so I should check it out. Maybe in the off season where there's time to kind of review some of these older races. But I'm really, I think F1 does not do a great job traditionally at ushering in new talent because there's only usually 18 to 22 spots, and so now that we have some turnover, I'm wondering how that affects where this grid goes, and if there's guys who can endear themselves to the fan base not just through their charisma and driving to survive, but through their actual driving on the course. Can they get points?
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing about F2. And I have watched maybe like 2 races. Like I mentioned, I watched the Bortoleto race just to see how the hell he did that, how he pulled that off. If you have ESPN Plus, I believe you can watch all of the F2 races as well. I don't know how long they keep them, but that is where I went to watch the couple races that I did watch. One thing that is interesting, though, about these drivers is like F2 has this weird disconnect where it's not really like, yes, F1, F2, you assume it's just like a junior category, and in name it is, but in functionality, it's actually not. Like the cars are very different. The teams are different. There's a lot of things that don't directly translate to F1. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult to figure out how a driver might get from F2 to F1. Just because you win F2 doesn't necessarily mean you can drop into an F1 car and have success. Whereas some drivers are even skipping F2 altogether. And it comes to like these academies. Sims are getting very good. You're getting a lot of training, again, like Meg said, from Fernando Alonso. It's a great person to learn from, right? So they put a lot of money into developing these drivers. And then sometimes it's just about money. Like we know on the grid, Lance Stroll, should he be an F1 driver? Maybe not. Logan Sargent was there. Should he have been? Maybe not. And he's gone. So like there's still an issue of like meritocracy and like making sure that the most talented drivers are the ones who get into F1. But getting so many young drivers now makes it seem like, okay, we might in some convoluted pathways be getting to a point where we're getting to see a lot more talent get on the grid. And hopefully that's the case with Bortoleto. I haven't seen him in an F1 car yet, but I'm excited to do so.
And not to set high expectations, but the last driver to win F2 in their first year in the series was Charles Leclerc. So you got some big shoes to fill, my friend. And he was in Sauber when he started. So I'm just saying, if you want chosen one status, you got to prove it. Well, when Bortoleto gets introduced to the grid, he's going to be introduced with 19 other drivers because F1 just announced that they will be hosting a season launch event in quotation marks, because we don't know what it looks like yet, at the O2 Arena on February 18th. We are hopeful that our on-the-ground London correspondent, Deepti, will be able to go and give us all her thoughts. But what did you guys think when you heard that instead of doing the traditional team-by-team announcement of cars and liveries, that they're now just going to do one big event in the O2?
Yo, it's fun. It's kind of like, media day in college basketball or college football, where all the teams show up, all the coaches show up, everyone is, you see, again, you get to see the interactions, not just between drivers on a particular team, but between these teams as well. And it's also a fun way for them to check out the competition, right? They're kind of looking through, like, especially in a race car, they're looking through, oh, damn, your car looks good, man. Like, you'll get a lot of that kind of interaction, which is fun. And I think it's good for the fans too, right? To have this big, spectacle to kick off the season and really get people excited about it is cool. It makes it where there's one operation, there's one kind of production for it, as opposed to, you can tell, some teams just don't prepare for it like others do because they don't have the time or the money or both to really put into it and really, again, endear themselves to a fan base. So I like it. I wish I lived in London like Deepti does, where I could go make something like that happen and go see. But I wonder if it's something that they do every year in different parts of the world where they have races.
F1 TV, if you want to make so much money, please give us a feed where each driver has a camera on their face, and we can choose which drivers we watch the reactions from. Like
the races where we have the different cars. Yeah, you
have the technology. I'm sure of it. Just let me find out what Max Verstappen's saying. Let me see Charles and Pierre talk shit in French. You'd love to see it. What Donald said about like different teams making it a priority. On one hand, I will be sad not to see the kooky shit that Ferrari comes up with every year. One year they had people dancing on the side of the building. It was bizarre. But there are some teams that truly just seem like Red Bull one year just literally just posted it on Twitter. They're like, we're not really going to do an event. We're too serious for this. Famously, Aston Martin tried to do this like virtual reality thing that totally didn't work. Like the app just absolutely did not work. So I think from a marketing by Liberty Media standpoint, it's really smart. They're going to own the content. They're going to push the content. I'm assuming that they're going to have some huge performer, let it be chat favorite Dua Lipa, please. We shall see. So it'll be kind of a cool event for them to sort of be able to push on a more international scale instead of having it be team by team. But we will lose some kooky magic from the last couple of years that was always fun for social media content.
If F1 needs somebody to reach out to Dua Lipa and see how she's feeling about this, I'm good to like, you just send her number and I'll be able to like send a message. Like I'll make the contact. I'm not busy. It's all good.
Bruh.
I'm sorry. I'm just offering my services.
You just cut the line.
To give the listeners a background to the group chat, when we originally talked about this and I said noted Arsenal fan, everyone in the chat said doesn't matter that she's a noted Arsenal fan. We're all good. So the power
everybody has flaws.
Dua
It's
Lipa,
fine. If that's her only flaw, I can deal with it.
Unites the chat.
Yeah. I mean, when I first heard of this, my initial thought was Netflix. Like this is just it. Like this is going to be part of just the thing. I have heard though that in listening to a number of podcasts, particularly ones that kind of pay attention to the technical side of things, they really feel like this is going to be more of a livery show than it is a car show. And I think that does kind of cheapen it a little bit, but teams are also very protective about what they have and really aren't going to do it until practice session starts and they get to get the car on the track. So you're really not going to see all the little things that are changed on the cars. Like does somebody have a newer, interesting looking wing or the side pod's different on one car versus another car? Like there's not going to be a lot that you're going to be able to gain. It's just going to be basically a made for TV event, which I mean, it's kind of worked out well for F1. So I understand the purists being like, I don't really like that, but it's helped the sport grow. And I do kind of wish that teams still had a little bit of ability, even if it's just extremely chaotic, to like put forward their own thing, because part of it is fun to see like who does a good job and who absolutely like does an awful job. Kind of like what in soccer we did kit releases. Some clubs do a great job. Some get mocked and completely absolutely scorched online. And I think it's the same thing with car reveals. Sometimes they nail it and sometimes they don't. And it's very funny to have those reactions. But either way, I think it is going to be, it's new, it's different. We'll see if they keep it. Probably will if it's a TV show. But I'm kind of in both minds of it. Like I kind of like the old aspect of each team doing it themselves, but I am kind of also here for the official unveiling, which will kind of not be official in terms of what the cars actually look like once they're on track.
You know, media days do the same thing. So in that frame, I'm not concerned about there's not as much meat substance, right? You get to ask questions. I wonder if they have like, you know, press conferences with all the teams like they would do at a media day. But like the introduction of the cars, like that's what you're there for, right? Again, it's kind of like the kit releases. You don't get at the kit release how the team is going to play on the field. You don't get practice. You just get the the cool stuff. And then it's incumbent on the, you know, journalists later on to be like, hey, let's schedule a time where I can come in and actually see the team train. I think the one thing that would be missing from this that I'm thinking about now, having seen, you know, how they do it on Drive to Survive, is how a lot of the individual events involved all of the people that were responsible for the car becoming a car, right? All the R&D people, all the developers, all the people who actually build the thing, being a part of that and saying, hey, here's what, you know, all this work that we've asked you to do. Here's what has, you know, what we've put together, thanks to you. That's probably not going to happen with this media day. But hopefully, as you mentioned, Andre, there's a time for them to recognize all those thousands of people who help put these cars on the track and get them to perform at maximum ability.
So we will be excited to see what happens. Like we said, Dua Lipa, girl, clear your calendar. We would love to see ya. And we'll have more thoughts come February. We're going to end today's show by doing a new segment called Pit Stops, where we just give you some quick thoughts on some silly or not so silly things that happened during the break. And we're going to start by Donald talking about what did Bottas get up to recently?
Valtteri Bottas, I need to talk to you, man. Why are you doing an Ironman in your home on your day off? Like, it's your day off. It's your week off. It's your 2 weeks off. Man, read a book. Like, write a letter or something. Like, find a pen pal. Catch up on some Netflix. You have the time, but this man instead did a whole Ironman triathlon in his home. He swam X amount of miles. I don't know how much he did. And then he did the bike portion on the Peloton, and then he jogged on a treadmill. And then there's a picture of him taking a nap. Yeah, you damn right you're probably tired after doing all that. But the thing is, you could have been equally tired and not done all that, because there's no reason for you to do that. But in all actuality, like, it's really cool. It's great that we can clown someone for doing this, because that's nothing I can ever do. But yeah, Valtteri Bottas, instead of, just maxing and relaxing, he decided to take it to the next level. And yeah, he is an Iron Man, but he's also a wild man.
Get excited for Valtteri Bottas, the YouTube content creator, because Buddy is not going to be around much longer.
Oh yeah.
I hate to tell you, that is what he's
maybe he's training for his new career.
Yeah.
He's gonna be doing Ironmans. I don't know.
He's the
for
next
those
Mr.
of you
Beast.
who don't know, his partner is a professional cyclist. So I, for one, am excited to see Valtteri Bottas Pag, husband and girlfriend, partner and girl. Anyway, whatever the acronym is, I'm excited to see him be a bike husband. So it's going to be pretty excited. Andre, tell us about this TikTok with Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I will say that Valtteri Bottas and me are very much built differently. You give me a time off, the last thing in hell I'm doing is an Ironman in my own house. I don't care if I've got a pool in order to swim laps around it. It doesn't matter. I'm chilling. In fact, I'm doing even more chilling if that's the kind of money I got. This was funny. One of my favorite sports writers, one of my favorite writers, period, Spencer Hall. Shout out to him. He also does an F1 podcast. DNF? Yes, DNF is what it is. And shout out to Doug, who does a little producing on that as well. And he does a TikTok thread every now and then. When he goes to TikTok, he brings them back, and he is on Blue Sky doing his TikTok thread, which I love because he just finds the most random and hilarious things from TikTok. And one of them was a very hilarious, very short video that was just like, it was like a parent, like an illustration of two parents coming together, and there was a baby, and the caption was like, this is what happens to a baby when it's not loved. And instead of like the baby falls like through the arms, like in the illustration, goes down, and then all of a sudden the screen changes, and it's the intro to Max Verstappen in the beginning of like the F1 video. And it's just like the most hilarious thing, because honestly, it's not that funny, because we know how Joss, like his dad, has treated him. I think even you heard it in Interlagos. They told a little story about the way that his dad kind of trained him to drive in the wet, which basically was when everybody else was like, hey, it's too dangerous. He was like, no, you keep doing laps out there. That sounds abusive. That doesn't sound great. So part of this is like not great. And you can be like, the ends justify the means or whatever, but I'm not one of those people that thinks that. So, but seeing this, just given like Max and his very much persecution complex, main character energy, certainly a lot of therapy to go through either after his F1 career, maybe, or never, I guess is probably what he's going to do. But like, it just was it was so shocking to see that TikTok to all of a sudden see Max Verstappen, because honestly, nailed it.
We do not support child abuse, even if it makes good drivers. That is the official position of Dear SFC.
Correct.
On some more serious news is not the right word, just like some news. Alpine switching to Mercedes engines. We assume also gearboxes, but we actually didn't have that confirmed. Will it make them any faster? Who knows? We don't know. Is Alpine doomed to just be really handsome French people? Maybe. It's fine. It's fine. So we'll see what happens in the future.
Well, I'm sorry. I did hear that Alpine is definitely switching to Mercedes engines, but they're not 100% going to switch to the gearboxes. I think they're going to do that, but there was some talk about them trying to create their own gearboxes to work with the Mercedes engines, which is just like, why would you do that? You had an engine factory yourself. You could just do that. But if you're going to do the gearbox, like retrofitting your gearbox to a Mercedes engine seems like a silly way. I don't know. Whatever they're doing seems really ridiculous. Yeah, a big waste of time.
I don't know if it has something to do. Alpine is one of those teams that has country support, so it may have to do with like they have to make a certain percentage of the car. I don't know
that could be
their money.
In France.
It could be that they have to have a certain percentage of the car, but yeah, we don't really know yet, as far as I'm aware. And correct me if I'm wrong, Andre, because you know a little bit more about it than I do. I just read the quick press release about it. They haven't officially said anything yet either way, so we're still kind of in this weird holding pattern. But the understanding is that they are going to make their own stuff, which like you said, not necessarily the smartest of things.
Although this does help Mercedes a little bit because McLaren is like running away like at the top of the Constructors' Championship with Mercedes engines. So if Mercedes has a team behind them, they can at least be like, hey, we're not the worst Mercedes team out here.
Fair. You always got to look back at the guy running slower than you with the bear, right?
There it is.
You always need somebody. All right. In capitalism news, Kit Kat is the official candy bar of F1. Get excited. The only way that this would make me excited was if they do a different Kit Kat flavor for every race. You can do it. There are fun flavors. You can give us the matcha flavor for the Japanese GP. Give us barbecue for Texas or armadillo. I don't know. Pick a fun flavor for the US.
Kit Kat sounds disgusting.
I didn't say it was going to be good. I just said it would
I
be
tried to come up
fair.
with something better and I couldn't. So, yeah.
Taco flavor? I don't
After
like
you
that
went
anymore.
matcha, I was going to say like, Megan, don't give away like all these great ideas. And then you went to barbecue and armadillo. And I was like, yeah, never mind.
Smart.
We'll keep coming up with the real things in the chat. All right, now is a time-honored tradition of being a hater on the podcast. And Andre, I'm going to turn it over to you to really tell us how you feel today.
Yeah, I know this is called pit stops, but just imagine this is like a Sauber pit stop, an early season Sauber pit stop. It's going to be about a minute or so. Because here's the thing. I think you can tell I am a Max Verstappen hater. This goes back a long ways, but also he shouldn't have one world championship. Lewis should have one. And so I will always kind of hold that against him and the entire Red Bull team. It's just where I'm at with this. So after Interlagos, there was a lot of talk about how this was one of the best, like top 5 wet weather drives in F1 history. And there were people on podcasts I was listening to that are going back to like 1968 or 1964 and talking about Jackie Stewart's drive and a lot of other drives in like the 70s and the 90s and the early aughts and all of that. And I'm not saying it's not impressive because, yes, you go from 17th, which we'll talk about, to first, and you win by that margin. That is impressive. However, I just want to step back a second and give a shout out to Pierre Gasly. He started 13th and he got to 3rd in an Alpine. Okay, so clearly there was some way to be able to get up there. Now, did Pierre Gasly make as many overtakes as Max Verstappen? I don't believe so. But also, Verstappen made a lot of his overtakes at turn 1, which we talked about on the last episode. It was impressive, but it wasn't like he had to do a lot of thinking. It was just like, get my car in this position. I found some grip on the inside of the track. I'm going to brake later. I'm going to hit this inside corner, and then I'm going to be ahead. That's what it was. It was the same pass over and over and over again. And yeah, it's impressive that he can do that. But I think that if you kind of juxtapose it and you say, what is more impressive? I don't know. I kind of think that if you have a driver like Pierre Gasly who has an Alpine and he gets himself up to 3rd on the podium, then starting from 13th, that kind of tells you how chaotic that race was and how much of an advantage could be gained by certain situations like a red flag, like a safety car and things like that. So I'm just kind of want everybody to pump the brakes just a little bit. I know Max is great. He is the GOAT of our time, like right now. We'll see what happens in the future. But I just want maybe there was a bit of recency bias that happened and everybody just wanted to crown Max because Pierre Gasly, don't forget, he did that in an Alpine and was standing on the same podium as Max Verstappen.
And Pierre Gasly didn't have the ability to just basically radio half the grid and go, yo, move on over, right?
Right.
Max basically, they said, oh, he took 7 guys in the first lap. I was like, yeah, it was like basically having a kid at the back of the restroom line saying, yo, my kid really has to go. He can't hold it. And they just, go ahead, let the kid go, right?
The only driver that battled him was Leclerc.
For him
that was
to
it.
There. Yeah, it was very easy for him to get there. And I think, that, again, that's not haterism. That you could check that. You could see how quickly guys just kind of slide on over and let him waltz by. We talked about that in the last episode. But yeah, Gasly didn't have that ability, didn't have that luxury. So, it may sound like haterism, and you're right. But we're also right. So I don't know where that leaves us.
Never change. We never change. We always will have a little bit of hatred in our heart for Max Verstappen. And I, for one, as I have always maintained, Pierre, he may not be the greatest driver, but he's always entertaining, whether that's sassy comments, whether that's potentially arguing with the greatest engineer of all time, or whether that's doing an entertaining race. Always interesting. Speaking of interesting or handsome, honestly, either way, spotted at the Gladiator 2 premiere in London was Carlos and Charles, looking very handsome in their suits. They hung out with Paul Mescal, who had previously been a guest of Ferrari, and it's a very adorable clip of Carlos and Charles doing an interview and Paul Mescal clearly being so excited to see them again and popping back up and hoping that they remember him. So it's a very adorable moment. If you want to see some handsome men in suits, check it out. And today's Chisme Corner, we're going to put heavily that these are rumors. These are Twitter rumors, which means they're really not confirmed, but they're fun to talk about nonetheless.
They're also Twitter rumors on Elon Musk's Twitter. So let's just all the layers of.
We just want to really emphasize that we are not breaking news by reporting this. Colapinto may not have a spot on the grid yet, but he may have spots in multiple people's beds because earlier this week, it came out that he may be dating the Princess of Norway, not the older Princess of Norway. We had a moment in the group chat where we might have thought that he was dating a 60-year-old. He's in fact dating...
Hey, no judgment, young man.
The 19-year-old Princess of Norway. She's actually pretty cool if you're into royals. She is currently serving in the military. She's going to be the Queen of Norway sometime soon, whenever her father, I believe, steps back. They changed the rules in the 90s to let women rule, which is pretty dope. So she will be the future Queen of Norway. Similarly, there also were rumors this week that he may be dating his ex-girlfriend. And why is that important, Megan? Well, that's because his ex-girlfriend was also Ollie Biermann's girlfriend. So she supposedly broke up with Colapinto, started dating Ollie, and now may be back to Colapinto. So we love some animus on the grid. I don't think that Ollie and Colapinto are probably good friends as a result, particularly if she has gone back to him. So who knows? He does, like I said, doesn't have a spot on the grid yet, but he is certainly making it more entertaining. Sadly, he did report earlier this week. He did tweet that he has been asked to do media training, so we may not get the unvarnished, incredible.
I hate
Williams
that.
has asked him to do media training.
That's the worst news of this entire episode.
Yeah. So, but we are thankful for all of the media clips he gave us before he got yelled at by Williams.
Relating back to Gladiator 2 and monarchies. This has nothing to do with F1, but since someone F1 was there, I could talk about it. Did you guys see the little thing that Denzel Washington was there and he was talking with media and he's, cracking jokes and answering questions, and some guy comes by and goes, "Hey, you need to go inside. The king is here. And so you need to clear this area." And he goes, "I'm sorry, I do what I want. I'm Denzel Washington," and just kept talking to reporters. And the reporters were laughing. And he's like, "What do you want me like? I don't know who you think you're talking to, but I'm Denzel Washington. I don't move for kings." So shout out to the GOAT, Denzel.
We fought
Washington.
a damn war over it. I don't have to move, damn it.
Right.
That is fair.
Right. You going to ask an American to move for the English king? For king? That king? In this economy? Nah, bro.
We don't recognize no kings.
Nope.
Go watch Hamilton. It's on West End. You'll figure it out. There's a whole song about it.
Go watch Gladiator 2. Denzel is the man. The man in that movie. Like, he's like, "I'm sorry, I am the king in the movie." So
I also love, I don't know how the entire movie's gonna go. I'm really excited to watch it, but from the clips I've seen, basically Denzel is playing Denzel, and that's exactly what I wanted.
Playing Alonzo.
Exactly.
That's the energy we need. So we still have a little bit of time before there's a race again. We got one more week. So in that time, feel free to catch an early screening of Gladiator 2. Find ways to stay entertained. Wicked comes out if that's more your speed. I reserve the right to comment on Ariana on a later date. But the next race will be in Las Vegas. So for those of us in U.S. time zones, it will be late because they want to do Vegas at night, but it will at least be a normal time zone race for us. So we don't have to do any time change. What time zone is it? Googling searches. So yeah, get excited, and we will be back before then to break down kind of what it's looking like for these final 3 races. But we just want to say thanks so much for joining us today, and vroom vroom.
Vroom vroom.
Vroom, vroom.